Creation does not begin with light. It begins with sound. The steady, pulsating rhythm of the cosmos echoes through the hollow drum of Shiva, waiting for an empty vessel to receive its resonance.
It really is the perfect philosophical grounding for what we are doing today.
It is. And for you listening right now, just imagine sitting here with us at Café Karma. The timeless scent of roasted herbal tea is drifting through the air, kind of mingling with that faint, dry smell of old, leather-bound books.
Just taking a breath here, hearing the delicate clinking of a porcelain cup against a saucer.
Followed by a moment of absolute contemplative silence. Because, it is in this exact quiet that we can truly examine the architecture of the cosmos.
Right. We are stepping entirely away from the noise of the mundane world for this deep dive into our sources.
Exactly. Our mission today is to look upward. We are exploring the heavenly archetypal level of the Nakshatra Dhanha, and we are reading this ancient astrology not as some simple predictive tool, but, well, as a profound psychological blueprint.
And to truly grasp that blueprint, we really need to begin with the name itself.
Which is often misunderstood, right?
Oh, completely. If you look at popular surface-level astrology, Dhanishta is almost always translated simply as the wealthiest.
Because of the root words.
Right. It is usually seen as a combination of the Sanskrit word dhana, which means wealth, and niha, meaning steady.
So it implies this immovable, massive material fortune.
Exactly. But that translation completely misses the deeper architecture of the text. It's too literal.
Well, the sources actually point to a much older, more profound root. When we trace the root dan, it actually relates directly to sound.
Yes.
So the truest translation of danya isn't the wealthiest, but rather steady sound.
It is an acoustic phenomenon way before it is a material one.
Right.
And recognizing that, it changes how we view everything about this constellation.
It really shifts the focus from hoarding material objects to, becoming a conduit for a frequency.
Precisely. This is why the primary symbols for this nakshatra are musical instruments, specifically the mridanga, which is the sacred two-headed drum of Lord Shiva, or sometimes a flute.
And what both of those instruments share is a fundamental architectural requirement.
Yeah.
They rely entirely on the element of ether or Akasha.
Space. Pure space.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because in modern terms, feeling hollow is almost always viewed negatively.
Oh, yeah. Usually it means a lack of something.
Right, if someone says they feel hollow, they mean they feel empty, completely devoid of emotion or substance. But the sources suggest that in the context of Dhanishta, this hollowness is actually the ultimate goal.
It is the absolute prerequisite.
I want to make sure I'm visualizing this correctly. It seems exactly like the body of an acoustic guitar.
That is a great way to picture it.
The wooden chamber must be completely hollow and empty of any other matter to perfectly catch, amplify, and project the intended frequency.
Right, there can't be anything else inside.
Because if you were to fill that guitar body with, say, sand or water or anything else, striking the strings would produce nothing but a dull, lifeless thud.
What's fascinating here is how that mechanical reality serves as the perfect mirror for the spiritual reality the texts describe.
How so?
Well, astrologically, this hollowness represents the absolute necessity of emptying the ego. Think about human nature for a second. We are constantly filled to the brim with our own internal noise.
Our endless inner monologue.
Exactly. We have our selfish desires, our fears, our attachments, and that chattering mind. If you are full of yourself, there is simply no room for anything else.
You're full of sand, essentially.
Right. Only by becoming utterly empty of that personal noise can a person become a pure instrument or a vessel.
So the drum doesn't play its own tune?
It cannot. It has no tune of its own. The drum must submit entirely to the rhythm of the cosmos.
So you must become a hollow vessel for divine resonance and universal rhythm to just flow right through you.
Yes. The previous nakshatra in the zodiac sequence, Shurvana, is about the act of listening to the divine frequency. Dhanishta is the active manifestation of that frequency.
It is the steady, rhythmic beat that organizes chaos into cosmic order.
Exactly.
But, a drum doesn't just play itself in a vacuum. If this nakshatra represents the hollow drum of space, who or what is actually striking it?
That is the crucial question, and it brings us from the abstract concept of empty space to the divine entities that actually inhabit and structure that space.
The ruling deities.
Right. The ruling deities of Dhanishta are the 8 Vasus.
And according to the texts, the word Vasu translates to ray of light or excellence.
They are the elemental deities of light and abundance. If you want to understand the foundational building blocks of material existence, you look to the Vasus.
So we are talking about earth, water, fire, air, sky, the sun, the moon, and the stars.
The tangible unfolding of cosmic power. They represent potential energy becoming kinetic. But to really understand the psychological weight of this nakshatra, we have to look at the mythology surrounding them.
Because it's not a story of perfection.
Far from it. It is a story of a profound fall from grace.
The mythology in our sources is definitely striking. It describes a time when the 8 Vases were enjoying a picnic in the forest.
Just a casual celestial outing.
Right. And during this outing, the wife of the Sky Vasus saw a beautiful, magical cow wandering nearby. Now, this was the wish-fulfilling cow belonging to the highly powerful sage Vashishta.
Not someone you want to cross.
Definitely not. But the wife desired this cow deeply, and she pressured her husband to take it. Yielding to his wife's desire, the Sky Vasus stole the sacred cow. Ah, yes. The classic, stealing a highly powerful sage's magical cow to impress your spouse's scenario.
Yep.
Rarely ends well.
It is a terrible strategy for a peaceful life, because when Sage Vashishta realized his sacred cow had been stolen, he used his mystic vision to identify the culprits.
And he was not happy.
He was furious. In his righteous anger, he laid a heavy curse upon all 8 Vases. He declared that they would be stripped of their celestial status and forced to be born on Earth as mortal humans.
Which, I mean, for a celestial being of pure light, that is the ultimate punishment.
Yeah.
The idea of being trapped in a dense, decaying physical body.
It was absolutely terrifying to them. So, in their panic, they begged the river goddess Ganges to be their earthly mother and save them from this fate.
And she agreed to help them out?
She did. She took the form of a beautiful mortal woman and married a mortal king. But she made one strict, unbreakable condition before the marriage.
He must never question her actions, no matter what she did.
Exactly. And the moment she gave birth to the first 7 Vases, she immediately carried them to the river and drowned them.
Which sounds horrific to mortal ears.
It does, but this act instantly released them from the dense physical world and the sage's curse. It allowed those 7 to immediately return to the heavens.
But human attachment eventually broke the system, didn't it? Because when she attempted to drown the 8th child, the king just couldn't bear it anymore. He stopped her.
He broke his vow. And because he questioned her, the Ganges placed the surviving child in his arms and simply vanished.
Leaving him with the 8th child.
Right. And that 8th child was the Sky Vasu, the very one who actually committed the theft of the cow in the first place.
Wow.
Because his life was spared from the river, he was forced to endure the full weight of the curse. He had to live an entire extended mortal life.
And he grew up to become Bhishma, the revered grandfather figure and legendary warrior in the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata.
But, how does this mythological history actually apply to the psychology of someone influenced by Dhanishta today?
Well, we have to look at the root cause of Bhishma's suffering. The original fall from grace, the stealing of the cow, was caused by a romantic entanglement.
Right, giving in to his wife's demands. Exactly. It happened because the Sky Vasu yielded to his spouse's personal desire instead of upholding cosmic law. He let the messy, subjective emotions of romance override objective duty.
So to balance that karmic scale, Bhishma lives a life of extreme denial.
Extreme. He takes a terrifying, unbreakable vow of lifelong celibacy. He renounces his right to the throne. He renounces marriage entirely, and he commits himself to unwavering, absolute loyalty to whoever sits on the throne of his kingdom.
Completely, regardless of his own personal feelings.
Exactly. This is the core psychological fear embedded in Dhanishta. It is the deep fear of the messy mortal life.
That makes so much sense.
In modern terms, people heavily influenced by this energy often harbor a subconscious fear of vulnerability, a fear of being entangled or tracked by the irrationality of romance and human emotion.
Because when the Sky Vasu gave in to romance, he literally lost his heavenly status.
He fell to earth.
That provides a massive insight for you, the listener, because the source is very clear that Dhanishta carries a reputation for being highly unfavorable for romance and marital bliss.
It is notoriously difficult for relationships.
But on the flip side, it is entirely unmatched when it comes to practical, heroic duty and strict adherence to vows. People might look at that and think it's just some arbitrary astrological rule.
But it's not.
No, it's actually a profound psychological defense mechanism. You hide behind your career, your obligations, or your duty to avoid the terrifying vulnerability of human connection.
You sacrifice the personal for the universal. The emotional and romantic desires, which are really just the noise of the ego, they must be hollowed out, leaving only the steady, unyielding rhythm of duty.
Bhishma became the ultimate instrument of the state, totally devoid of personal ambition.
He became the hollow drum.
So we understand the psychology and the mythological roots, but how does this translate into the actual mechanics of the cosmos? Because every constellation possesses a specific Shakti, a unique underlying power.
Right. And for Dhaniha, the texts identify its power as Khyapayitri Shakti.
Khyapayitri Shakti. And that is the inherent power to give abundance and fame.
Yes. It is a capacity to manifest tangible results and achieve the absolute zenith of worldly accomplishment. It is an incredibly potent driving force.
And looking at our sources, this drive is fueled by its ruling planet. Dhaniko is ruled by Mars, or Magala in Sanskrit.
The planet of raw willpower.
Right, aggression and the spirit of the spiritual warrior. It is the explosive spark of initiative. But here's where it gets really interesting.
It's a structural placement.
Exactly. The physical placement of this nakshatra in the sky creates this massive contradiction. Dhaniho physically spans across two different zodiac signs. It bridges the second half of Capricorn, known as Makara, and the first half of Aquarius, known as Kumbha.
That is correct. It straddles that boundary.
But both Makara and Kumbha are ruled by Saturn, or Sunny,
Yes, they are.
and Mars is explosive, fiery, and impulsive. Meanwhile, Saturn is cold, restrictive, rigid, and slowing. So my question is, won't these two opposing forces just cancel each other out? How does one reconcile the explosive action of Mars with the heavy restriction of Saturn?
It is a great question. But they do not cancel each other out. Instead, they compress one another. Saturn provides the absolute boundary, the unwavering structural limit that Martian energy usually lacks.
So it contains it.
Exactly. Unchecked, Martian energy is just a volatile explosion in an open field. It burns incredibly bright, but it dissipates instantly and burns out. Saturn refuses to let that energy dissipate. It forces the fire into a strictly confined space.
It is exactly like the body of an internal combustion engine.
Oh, that is a perfect mechanical comparison. Walk me through how you see that.
Well, in an engine, Mars provides the explosive spark and the burning fuel. But if that fuel just ignited on a table in the open air, you'd get a quick flash of heat and nothing else.
No actual power.
Right. Saturn acts as the heavy, rigid steel cylinder surrounding that explosion. Instead of just blowing up chaotically in all directions, that strict Saturnian limitation forces the fiery explosion to drive the piston forward with incredible, purposeful power. The restriction is actually what creates the torque.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. That structural friction between Mars and Saturn is the secret to Dhaniha's world-altering power. It is the absolute pinnacle of Martian energy because the fire is finally disciplined.
It becomes an unstoppable, measured march.
Exactly. In Dhaniha, Mars acquires the wisdom to use its explosive energy constructively over a sustained period of time. It requires an absolute mastery of rhythm and timing.
Knowing exactly when to strike the drum with full force and exactly when to remain completely silent.
Yes. And that mastery of timing, that submission to a higher structural law, dictates its ultimate life goal. The texts classify the Puryortha, or the fundamental life purpose of Dhaniha, as dharma.
Which means cosmic order and righteous duty.
Right. It is not about acquiring wealth just for the sake of wealth, even though we establish it has the power of immense abundance. It is about acquiring resources strictly to sustain the cosmic rhythm.
Which is such a vital distinction.
It really is. And this also illuminates a point that is often deeply misunderstood in the texts. The temperament of Dhanya is classified as Rakshasagana.
And in popular culture, the term Rakshasa is frequently mistranslated simply as demonic or evil.
All the time. But in the context of esoteric astrology, a Rakshasa temperament signifies a fierce, unrelenting, uncompromising drive. It is a terrifying force that will tear down any obstacle in its path to achieve its goal.
But when that goal is aligned with dharma, with universal duty, that fierce energy isn't evil at all.
Not at all. It becomes the ultimate protector of the cosmic order. It is the warrior who will stop at nothing to uphold their vow, exactly like Bhishma in the epic.
It is the relentless, steady beat of the drum that refuses to be silenced by the chaos around it. It forces everything else to fall into alignment with this rhythm.
The hollow vessel of the drum, struck by the relentless warrior energy of Mars, contained within the rigid structural confines of Saturn, producing a sound that sustains the very fabric of the universe.
So what does this all mean? If we distill this vast heavenly blueprint down for you, the listener, The archetypal level of Daniha presents a profound, almost intimidating challenge.
It really does.
It demands that you do the hardest work possible. You have to empty your ego. You are asked to become a hollow vessel, clear to the static of personal, selfish desires.
You have to make room.
Right. You must be ready to harness the intense, sometimes painful friction between your inner fire, your Mars, and the universe's strict boundaries and limitations, your Saturn. And you must do all of this not for personal glory, but to fulfill your ultimate duty.
Your Dharma. We have mapped the flawless heavenly blueprint of this nakshatra today. We understand the cosmic rhythm, the theory of the hollow drum, and the absolute purity of the archetypal warrior's vow.
We know what it takes to catch the resonance of the cosmos.
We do. But looking at the reality of human existence, a rather haunting question remains. Consider the environment we have built for ourselves today. We are surrounded by an absolute addiction to constant background noise.
It's true. We fill every quiet moment with podcasts, music, endless scrolling, and digital chatter. We have engineered a society that is terrified of silence.
Is this constant consumption of noise just a modern convenience, or is it a deliberate subconscious defense mechanism? Are we desperately filling our vessels with static because we are fundamentally terrified of the hollowness Daniha demands? Are we afraid of what rhythm might take over if we finally allow ourselves to be completely empty?
That terrifying descent from the archetypal perfection to the noisy, messy, earthly manifestation is the exact trace you will explore on your own until our next deep dive. Take a moment today to sit in silence. Listen to the rhythm.